Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Khofaune. I'm Khofaune Modise, and today I'm joined by a brilliant Congolese entrepreneur and advocate for economic transformation, especially within the African region. His name is Marc Watum, and he was one of my first guests when I started Conversations with Khofaune, and now he's back and doing incredible things. Hi, Marc.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Long time coming, eh?
For real. Years. But congratulations. It's beautiful to see your evolution, and I'm glad to be back.
Thanks. It's even more beautiful seeing your evolution and the incredible work that you've been doing. And today I want you to have your Vision 2013 fund cap on as we talk about funding African businesses, etc. But before we get into that, let's just talk about Marc and who he is and what's his driving motivation.
Sure. I'm the children of Congolese immigrants, refugees, who moved to South Africa during the civil war in the Congo. That was pretty traumatizing, not just for them, their families, etc. And they ended up moving to apartheid South Africa.
Yeah.
Bizarre. But that was all on the promise of change and what was coming. So that's the context I was born in. We didn't have very much. But Africa really became home, became a launch pad for all of us. So I grew up watching Dad in the mining industry.
Who is Dad, for those who don't know?
Who is Dad? His name is Louis Watum Kabamba. He's an Allure man from Mahagi, northeast of DRC. Every time we talk, it's interesting.
Yeah.
This morning, he was named the Minister of Mines of the DRC, which is incredible. It's a blessing. And it actually speaks to this launchpad story I'm saying, which is that he came here. What he had was a chemical engineering degree here. We're in South Africa at the moment. And there was no work. There's no jobs. But he persisted in looking for that space, those opportunities. I think the story goes he was a security guard working night shifts at a coal mine in Witbank, where I was born. And, he would help a lot with moving things around, and he knew what the apparatus was. And he got to be an assistant in there, and he went to study further, and he did so much self-enrichment that eventually he ended up, being hired and working in the lab and doing metallurgy kind of work. And then, well, they saw leadership qualities in him. And that led to promotion, after promotion, until I was 4 years old, and we ended up being moved to Mali in West Africa. So here begins an international experience for me, where I was born in a place that's not home, and by the time I'm 4, I moved to another country that I've never heard of before.
Still not home.
You know what I had heard of, though? The famous line, "I'll kick your butt to what is it? I'll kick you to Timbuktu."
Yeah.
Timbuktu's a real place.
It's a real place.
And it's in Mali.
Yeah.
So we visited Timbuktu. We lived out there. It was a desert, and watched a mine get established from scratch. And Dad was a metallurgist, but a very good one. And the promotions continued until he was GM of that project. And then next thing we know, we're moving to Uganda, because Dad is now going to be a director at a new gold project.
Around this time, how old are you?
I was 10.
Jeez. And when did you start having this awareness of what was happening around you and the change your father was making?
I feel like I remember the 4 years old flight to Mali.
Wow, yeah.
I think I spent my birthday traveling. Those are some of my earliest memories, but I remember them fully. And you get there and there's nothing, but then you're coming to yourself, into yourself. You're becoming increasingly conscious as the months go by, and suddenly you realize that, well, we now have concrete houses. It was all prefabricated or very thin plywood walls. And then next thing you know, it's a full-on mine village. There's a recreational
Yeah.
club. There's a swimming pool.
Yeah.
They're building extensions. They're doing this and that. You're getting invited, bring your son to work days, and you're seeing these blasts happen. And these explosions are crazy. And I was just fascinated by all of that, but knowing that Dad is the guy and seeing him solve those problems. I remember he used to have this walkie-talkie that was always charging in the house when he's home. And you just hear people call in, telling him there's a problem and you got to show up and come and fix this. And I thought he was such a hero. And his helmet is always in the back of the car. And when we're riding somewhere, you pick up his helmet and you throw it on and you pretend that you're him. So, I mean, it was extremely formative. It showed me a lot about hard work, project management, making something from scratch. And then the local community. You are living a very different life to the people outside the gate. Villages who have never seen some of the latest technologies, have never, this is late 90s, early 2000s. Things that we took for granted in South Africa, for example, were just not a thing there, So and maybe the most important thing in those communities was that Dad built churches. He built churches, laying the first brick, and everyone, contributing their salaries and, evangelizing. And then he ended up preaching in there too.
Wow.
And we just saw all of this happen, and he's just doing his best to integrate. Sometimes we're going to lunches at the locals' homes and celebrating local holidays, Tabaski, for example, with them, and slaughtering animals and doing their rites the way they do them. And, I remember all of that. So that was extremely formative. It stuck with me. And when we moved to Uganda, it was the same thing again. We're in the American international school of the country, of the city that we're in, but that enclave is separated from the reality of the place. Sure. And there's a whole culture, there's a community, there's people that matter. So, yeah, we did the same thing over there. I ended up graduating high school in Uganda, by the way. I went off to study business, finished the business degree where I majored in finance and in management, dual majors, and then launched an incubator during that time. We thought it was going to be a one-off event, a summit, but because of the caliber of people we had invited, investors, etc., we thought that all the startups who were going to participate need to go through some training and make sure that they don't embarrass themselves and make sure they do us proud. And we had our business school as our main sponsor for the event. We wanted to elevate and just grow the profile of the institution. Shout out to Holt International Business School. But when we finished those trainings, it was 10 weeks of intensive. Every team has a mentor, a professional from the field, from the sector, different master classes and workshops and hackathon style kind of work. We realized we had just conducted an incubator. We really did. And we're helping people get from ideation to, investment readiness. And then the summit comes and they pitch and, see what the outcomes are. Some are entering into accelerators. Others are entering negotiations with investors. We realized we have a solid model and we should keep that community going. So those are that's my youth. That's my childhood and teenhood, adolescence, how things came together.
That's actually insane. It's actually insane. And since then, you've gotten into so many projects. There's, your managing director of Wakala,
yes.
And then there's, chairman of Vision 2030, the Vision 2030 Fund. But they all have a streamlined objective, which is to empower African businesses.
And even more niche, it's all to do with the transformation
Absolutely.
of primary sector, what we call the natural or the real economy. Because I believe that is Africa's breadbasket. We are nature-led economies. We've got so much natural resource, minerals, these endowments that God gave our soil, the secret or the key in my theory to liberate Africa economically, socially, etc., to reclaim our power as a region, as a continent, will come from our ability to manage these resources correctly, because no one else in the world has them and everyone needs them. So Vertex, let's incubate the solutions that will transform the sector. Vision 2030 fund. Oh, no one wants to invest in African startups? Fine, we'll do it. And we'll invest in the startups that are doing that transformation.
Let's get into that, actually. The conversation of no one wants to, question mark. Is it a situation that no one wants to invest into African startups? Why are we struggling to get the funding that we're looking for, especially for projects that require millions in USD to really get going? I know you and I had a conversation on the side, and we don't have a camera, about it, and we talked about the difficulties, or limitations rather, that keep us from going beyond or actually reaching the criteria that investors are looking for. I'd love for you to touch on that.
You know, the first time we ever talked, the statistic was 0.7% of global VC funds flow into African startups. Last year that dropped to 0.4. It's dwindling, it's getting worse. I guess it's because the pie is getting bigger in terms of capital, money, and more people are investing, there's more funds. Fine. But the share that African startups get is decreasing in proportion.
Sure.
And there's many reasons why, of course. First of all, venture capital is usually dollarized. It's a dollarized ecosystem. There's a lot of currency risk associated with investing in different African economies. I like to tout that the DRC is a dollarized economy, so we're becoming increasingly attractive to global VC, private equity, development finance as well, because of that. But not everyone is. So already the risk of putting your dollars into an African soft currency business and hoping that the currency fluctuations and all of this remain intact such that you can anticipate your returns and you do know where your money is going, how it's going to come back to you, and you can plan off of that over extended periods of time. We're talking 8 to 10 year time frames for a lot of these deals. So that's already a big turnoff for investors. But then risk, credit risk is another issue, default risk specifically. There is a misconception that African businesses are bad at borrowing and repaying. If you look at the credit rating agencies like Moody's, and they already just whitewash, white label, let's say black label, different African economies with their rating, A, B, C, whatever it is, junk, this. They talk about the government itself, the central bank of the country itself, which is the entry point for capital into any economy. They put ratings on their bonds. They say that this is how you should anticipate the country's development over the next middle to long term, in terms of their treasury, in terms of the health of their economy. And so there's a big rebuttal now, led by the likes of the African Development Bank, the African Union, etc., to move away from Moody's, for example, and come up with contextualized, relevant credit rating agencies who understand the nuances, because there are certain metrics that prove that actually we're not bad borrowers. And in terms of credit default as countries, we're nowhere near the worst in the world.
And also, what are they comparing us to also?
Others.
You know, how do you take a completely unique economy, or like Africa, and Africa alone in its various regions are so different. Southern Africa and West Africa are so completely different. And just to place us under one rating or basket is just
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you look at like raw numbers of who's defaulting the most, it's not us, first of all. So that's very interesting. President Akinwumi Adesina of the African Development Bank went on Hard Talk, one of my favorite programs, and he absolutely massacred any such labeling accusation of African economies as being defaulters, you know, and I loved that. So I took a deep dive into studying that, and I understood, and I think the African Union is doing the same thing. And so we're coming up with alternatives, and under that is what we call informality, right? So when I say they, I mean the global financial order, IMF, World Bank, the big lenders, etc. They perceive Africa, or sub-Saharan Africa in particular, as a largely informal economy. We are unbanked. We don't subscribe to the same what they call financial responsibility and literacy. We don't do it the same way. Credit worthiness. We don't appear as credit worthy because we don't manage business, manage investments the same way, right? We don't subscribe to the same model as them. So if you're outside of their framework, there's no way for their money to cooperate with you. It's very challenging. All the big lenders are bound by policy, by accountability, a whole lot of procedural, administrative rules. And if you don't match the rules, if you don't follow the rules, there's just no way. There's a disconnect.
Yes.
So venture capital kind of presents an opportunity to work outside of that framework. You're not necessarily banking. You're not necessarily, bound to the same standards, regulations, rules of the game as you would be if you're taking credit or a loan at a bank, So African businesses, our startup ecosystems, etc., are waking up to what these differences are. And yes, there's an attempt to formalize in a way that makes it more coherent with the rest of the world, which is good. But at the same time, there's alternative funding. There's a big growth in new kinds of support mechanisms that recognize the differences in African economics, in African development and business, that allows money to flow in, right?
Yeah. I know there was a time, I don't know who you confronted. I don't know if it was someone at the African Development Bank or African Bank. And you said, we want money. You're not giving us money. You say you do, but you're not. And I think that story, and I wish more people were actually present to hear you narrate that story. And I thought it was very bold of you, but it also shows the conviction that's already within you. Yeah. To say that you guys have money, give it to us. Like, stop telling us that we're a risk. How will you know our capabilities if you don't bet on us,
Exactly. And it's not that easy, right? At the time when I let's say, rushed the president of the African Development Bank.
That's crazy.
Akinwumi Adesina on stage. I was at COP in Egypt. He put his team in contact with me, and they put their best foot forward. But the major issue was this fund size and their economics, and how they're bound by their economics to, it's essentially a de-risking approach, and it's also to invest at scale. These guys borrow their money or are funded by capital markets, by huge institutions. We're talking tens of billions of dollars at a time. So what business do they have putting $50,000 into startups? Or no, it will require such volumes of different investments and management. So how do they adapt their funds now to recognize this? And through growth and exposure in the space since that date, I found that, well, if you want to play at that level, if you're a startup, if you're a business, and you want to attract these funds that are already so conditioned and and tied to all of those rules and those expectations of how the capital will grow, and you want to promise an investor that you will help that be achieved, it's not enough to just show up and present good financial accounts, statements for the last 3 years and say I'm good at money. They need to de-risk the whole thing in a different way. They need not just a business plan. They need a certain level of studies, these market validations. You do market testing. You do feasibility studies that breaks down to environmental impact, social impact. There's scope studies that need to happen. There's so many different elements that these institutions, if you're actually in their office and you actually have their ear, they'll say, yeah, I can invest, but I need to see all of these, and we're going to take this to committee.
Those studies require money, though. That alone requires funding.
I saw a friend, I'm not going to say his name, he made a post on social media saying, somebody just asked me, and he's the person to ask, right? Somebody just asked me if we can invest, if we can grant them $10 million to complete their feasibility study.
The study alone?
The study alone.
Wow.
Forget what sector it is. In fact, if it's energy, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah.
If it's combination, multi-sectoral, infrastructure, meets energy, meets agri-transformation, meets distribution, so logistics is involved. And then you want to put that all on a platform and automate it and make it accessible to hundreds of thousands of people. No, you don't just make a business plan.
Yeah.
You do these studies. It's going to ramp up. You're going to exceed $40 million.
Sure.
So where is the average business person in Africa supposed to get those funds? Now, how do you do that? And so I proved this to be a problem. I spent the last year with the Ministry of Industry and SMEs in the DRC, still wearing my hat as chairman of Vision 2030 Fund. It's really market testing of my own, figuring out what's the truth about the investment ecosystem, the landscape in Africa. Let's really get there. Let's be on the ground. We got hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs, millions. Let's see where the challenges, the bottlenecks are. And we've got all these friends who are the leaders of these financial institutions, Afrexim Bank, AFDB, World Bank, Development Bank of Southern Africa, the list goes on. We've got these giants. And then we've also got the VCs and the development finance institutions that are more boutique and niche focused. And we know all these people, so let's invite them and let's see if we could get some deal flow going, and it's our job to. And that's been the roadblock. That's been the bottleneck. That's been the issue the whole way through. You can have a state incubator that really takes care of these entrepreneurs until they're investment ready, like clockwork. You can have a guarantee fund that takes those businesses from the incubator and covers that risk exposure with a guarantee, because these guys don't have property to put up as collateral. They don't have. So fine, we'll give them the collateral. Cash. Okay. You can also have a VC fund for the state that can do grants, investments, as debt or as loan, as equity, hybridize all of that. You've got this elaborate ecosystem to support these entrepreneurs. But when it gets to that funding stage, the problem still exists.
So have you found yourself in a situation where MOUs are signed, etc., and they commit millions and millions of dollars, and when you ask for the money, nothing happens? Because essentially my question is, why do we need to have conversations that actually lead to action? Because one thing we do love is the meetings. Yeah. We love the summits, we love the conferences, but we need the money.
We called those friends, we invited them, we made programs to get them tied into the country. We did MOUs. We exceeded over $8 billion in capital committed to the country for these programs.
Which country that?
The DRC.
DRC.
Democratic Republic of Congo alone.
Sure.
And that was done in the span of 3 months. So the money's there. That's the point. The capital does exist, and we've come up with ways to attract it, right? But we still need to merit it. We still need to translate that into a direct investment to these businesses. So 3-month span, $8 billion raised, on the condition that these businesses provide the right materials, pass the investment committee of these funds.
Right.
And the investment committees are at their will, their free will to decide whether or not to actually put funds into these businesses. And stuck. We're just not getting the right set of information over to these investors. They're clear. This is the checklist. Give us this for every business that wants our funding.
Are said investors African-based or European-American-based?
Mainly African-based. Still, they get their money from capital markets that are very global. So they still have a duty, and it's still like you're borrowing from the rest of the world because, well, if you mess up their capital, they're accountable to somebody too. It's not like now. The exciting thing is that there are investors that are maybe even more powerful than these institutions that are entirely homegrown. We're talking about national sovereign wealth funds, pension funds. Pension funds are ridiculously well endowed financially. And they just need good structure, you know. So we figured out the landscape, we figured out the challenges, and we figured out the alternatives as well. But I'm not going to start calling pension funds if I don't have these studies. Simple. So I understand going back all those years to when I rushed Adesina that like his hands are tied. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
It's not his fault.
Yes. I mean, I think that's, I guess, the frustration that will we ever have our very own similarly to Silicon Valley, we have these incredible entrepreneurs that come budding out because you have investors that decided to take a risk on these individuals. And Lord knows, we'll never really hear about how much was lost in the process, but we'll hear about the success stories. Now what? That's my question. Now what happens? Is it your duty now our duty rather as Africans, to convince these investors that we're going to need money for these feasibility studies and to reach the criteria that they're looking for in order for us to get the funding, in order for us to actually start operating the way we need to and making the impact that we're looking for? Because we've heard it so much how Africa is the most youthful continent, and by 2030 we'll have such and such XYZ number of youth. We're the most entrepreneurial, innovative, etc. And it always leads us to this one question, or around this one point of potential. There's so much potential. When will we actually actualize this potential?
I replace now the word potential with example.
I love that.
Just be an example.
Sure.
So if you can demonstrate how this could work by doing it a couple of times, here, there, and then you replicate that and you implement that as a policy, as a way of raising funds, managing investments, you know, and this, you have to go through the process. Right. It's work, it's hard work.
Yeah.
But when I came to an understanding about this, I changed the way I was approaching the problem. I said, okay, fine. You're an investor, you have capital and you have interests. For example, you look at China, and I think my eyes kind of opened to this prospect through Ms. Hannah Ryder, who participated in our event in Abidjan at the annual meetings of the African Development Bank. So there's a Chinese investor who comes looking for a major opportunity. They don't tell you how much money they have. They got that kind of resource. But they tell you that if you can present us an opportunity that requires energy infrastructure development, we would love to talk about funding that. If you present us an opportunity that has to do with agri-transformation, that's of scale, we would love to fund that. If there's technological components to all of this and there's a new innovation that can streamline that entire process and make it cheaper, more accessible, and replicable in the region, we'd like to fund that. And they tell you that.
Yeah.
But you know that you need feasibility studies for those projects. So you say this to them.
Yeah.
I did the research on you. I know that not only do you have these resources, but you're part of a conglomerate back at home. And in your conglomerate, there is a company that you will call to do the construction of that energy infrastructure you're interested in funding. I also know that you will call another company to come do the agri-transformation as a technical partner or as a business. You want them to set up the factory here that we're asking you to fund. You're going to find ways to bring businesses from your country into our ecosystem that comes with your investment, your capital. So why don't we do this? We don't have studies for all of these projects. You start off by committing to funding the study. If you can do that, then the owner of this project on the ground, who needs the study to be funded, will be ready to concede to you exclusivity.
Sure.
Go ahead and commission whoever you want to build these different things. I'm not a builder. We're not into building energy infrastructure. We just need it to exist so that we could do our project.
Yeah.
We're not interested in building a transformation station so that we can make, one raw material turn into a finished product. We just want that finished product to exist. We're not interested in the logistics and the trucks and the whatevers, but we need them here. So if you fund the study, I'll give you the right to do all of that yourself. Because there's investments waiting, there's investors waiting, there's billions of dollars committed to developing this exact value chain. So when they come and they give me the capital because we finished the studies, I'll have them pay you to do the job. Sure. So you'll recover the investment you made into the feasibility studies because you're now building everything. So you're a contractor now. So you see, we've now created this hybrid model where first investor, the one who takes the biggest risk in the project, is guaranteed to get their money back the minute we unlock the investment because we made that study happen. And now they're going to participate in the project and we can give them equity in it too. We don't just have to go into this debt model. They can be an equity investor in the project. So not only are they going to get their money back when the project is now being developed and we have an investor pouring in, they've got equity and they're doing business and they get to construct and they're now a partner and they have skin in the game. And they're definitely way more experienced than any of us at doing all of this. Why else would they have that level of resource to come to us and request that we reveal to them projects in certain sectors? So play to your strengths and acknowledge your weaknesses. Be honest about what you don't know and make useful partnerships that start with getting the funding to do your study. If that study is realized and you already tell a compelling case, you have to have a business plan. You have to have done some market investigations. Don't just wake up and say, hey, come fund a study so we could do something. You have to. Entrepreneurship is not a walk in the park, right? So you still got to do your job. And if you've done it right, you have a great starting point for those negotiations with these investors. And that is now proven. We just did that. We just did that.
Yeah.
So, example, and if you can keep doing that in different contexts for different value chains and connect the dots between all of them and realize suddenly you have revolutionized certain aspects of this niche we're focused on, this primary sector, natural, real economy transformation of Africa. And you now found a model to invest that really protects locals, allows them to own business and also grow, their region at the same time. It's a slam dunk, right?
And it'll take years. It'll take a while though. It'll take a while though.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do you think is important for African entrepreneurs to understand when it comes to the rhetoric of what entrepreneurship looks like as African entrepreneurs versus the actual reality? Because what I'm gathering from you now is how difficult it is actually to grow from just being an SMME to really growing to whatever type of large-scale organization you'd like to be. And I think, unfortunately, majority of us, in comparison to our European or American counterparts, remain in the SME stage for tens of years. And we see our fairer skinned brothers and sisters who seem to have a grip on it, and we see them with these big, large-scale organizations, and we wonder, how did you get investment and how did you manage? Aren't we doing the same thing? Now you have you have someone who started off selling vegetables on the side of the road, and before you know it, now they own, a grocery store. We don't see often those stories with people of our skin color within Africa, and it's so unfortunate. And I hear the conversation, the dialogue around, funding, you need feasibility studies and so on, but it's going to take a while. But you have people that are ready to act now and have a proven case. We see it in township economies. I'm sure even in DRC, you can give, proper examples of that. It's just that it's not quote unquote formalized. So how do we kind of quickly kind of bridge that gap and have a now action rather? Or am I asking for too much?
No, it's a big question.
Yeah.
But, it's a multifaceted response. First of all, there is a role of good governance in all of this, right? You need the right regulatory framework, which I believe South Africa is definitely a continental leader in that space. You may see that in Nigeria as well, maybe Kenya too, and others are following suit, Uganda even. Now, in that regulatory framework, in that good governance, the opportunities, the landscape, the willingness of leaders, of community leaders, provincial, national leaders, to be on the ground, look around them, and tie what they're seeing to what is the top-down policy. There is always top-down policy. There's always a directive from the top, from the leadership of the economy saying, this is where we want to go over the next period of time. And you need to work within those frameworks, wherever you are, to connect, And it's harder said than done, of course. I mean, it's easier said than done. It's harder to execute than you'd think. I've seen it with our government, but if you can connect SMEs, micro enterprise, who really are the heartbeat of these communities, people make livelihoods from this, and they just need a boost. They need an elevation. Then governance, that's the role of governance. That's what we're supposed to do, right? And if that is construed as government is supposed to pay for all of that or invest in all of that, that's the mistake.
Yeah.
That's where it becomes multifaceted, because ecosystem is the solution. Ecosystem is the way that this works. The state facilitates. They give a platform. They elevate. But funders, private sector, all these different models of funding that we're talking about here, they all play a role. They all have to contribute. They all have to work together, coordinate themselves. Private sector coordinates in that sense. So you want you want something to happen right now. It starts with that.
Sure.
You have to be on the ground. Someone has to really see that. Someone has to give that the right platform. The private sector needs to be arranged, and civil society too, to coordinate. And just step by step get them through it, you know? And I would say specialize in the right value chains. Is it relevant to, I don't know, Swaziland, Eswatini, to focus on developing their automobile value chain right now, today? Maybe not as much as it would be for them to develop agriculture value chains. Likewise, in Johannesburg, well, we've got manufacturing, right? So let's transform those in ways that we play to our strengths. And if you want something to happen right now, you go where it's simplest, right? So that comes to strategy, policy, and again, coordination. It's a big coordination game.
Yeah. And what would you say is your hope? I mean, I wouldn't say hope with you. I don't like using these fluff words because you're such an action-oriented person and you've done a lot with I want to say with the team you're working with, but every time I see you move, you're literally by yourself. But I want to know what would you say is your hope? And what are you clinging on when it comes to funding for African entrepreneurs? And what advice would you give African entrepreneurs?
Whether or not I hope, I believe it's going to happen this way. We've got such a young population, you know. There's what I see as an old guard and a new guard. An old guard is we've just reclaimed our control of our economies, of our countries. It's a limited control. We are post-colonial. We are trying to stand up and wake up the sleeping giant, and we're going to do this. And many have failed to do it. Many have squandered.
Sure.
Many have corrupted. But this young population has watched that. And this young population, I would say, is animated about that. Everywhere you go, I don't think you have to be very educated, but to be young. And you would generally have the same perspective about how development is going in Africa. And you would generally know that if the power fell into your hands, you would do things differently, right? So whether we like it or not, the old guard will be no more one day. The new guard is already introducing itself. And it's encouraging those of the old guard who are willing to listen to make the right changes. We're seeing policy changes left, right, and center that really favor the youth, that really favor marginalized groups, that understand the problems. And these are happening nationally. And at the regional level, through the African Union, through our multilateral institutions, through the banks, the development finance, we're seeing changes. We're seeing them happen. So for entrepreneurs who are aspiring, I really encourage to watch and inform yourselves about what these changes are. Who's making them? What are the policy differences? Where are the opportunities they're in? And educate yourselves on the real market demand, the needs right now. Where does it make sense, given these policy changes, for me to put all my effort in a way that will be beneficial to my community, will be sustainable in the long run, and that will give me a livelihood, right? You do business to develop livelihoods. You want to earn something and live off of that. And if you do it really well, you get to earn a lot out of that. It's profitable. And there's nothing wrong with profit. But you got to be smart about it. So I really recommend that entrepreneurs stay on top of the ball with their education, with their research, with their understandings of what's going on, what are opportunities, what are policies that apply to me, what are my rights under those policies, what am I supposed to do to make sure I've actually done my part the whole way. There's nothing better than knowing that you did everything you're supposed to do and you're waking up every day and you're doing it, you know. and you'll be shocked. A lot of entrepreneurs who are up in arms about not being supported don't. So don't cheat yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Make sure you're being very wise and intentional about where you're looking and what you want to develop. And then with the people I work with the team, my goal is to be a funder. I really want to be the lead funder. I see us doing it. I see us understanding entrepreneurs. We're gonna lead the charge. We have an opportunity to demonstrate to global investors and capital how to do this correctly in Africa, under the guise of venture capital. And we've studied the game so well now. So we're proving where people with capital need to press, and the results will speak for themselves.
Yeah. Ultimately, the capital is there.
It's there.
It's there. Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
So we just need to prove, and we have started to prove that when that capital is actually used, this is ultra high growth. It's an extremely positive, desirable outcome that outcompetes your S&P 500.
Sure.
You know, so we're on that journey. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, I hope that the next time, probably season 10 of my podcast, that'll be broadcasting on television or something.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about those success stories and what this capital can actually do.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. We'll have to see. We've started
that deep breath you just took says it all, eh?
Yeah. We planted the seeds. We've started to see them germinate. And we need to water them. We need to nurture the soil. And when we see those stems and the leaves and the flowers and the fruit, you know, I'll get to come back and say, I told you guys so.
Yeah.
And that's a very exciting thing, because if I'm right, then it's not just me who gets to be happy. That means we're transforming Africa.
Absolutely brilliant, Marc. I get chills every time I talk to you.
Thank you.
All the time. I think maybe it's probably your calm demeanor also.
Thank
Make it
you.
seem like it's not a big deal, but
if I'm not calm about it, who will be? Who will be?
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
Sure.
There's many boxes in the head.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just thank God that we're able to handle it as hard as it is. We've got good support, good family, good friends, and people who want to listen and give us an opportunity to share. And out of, you know, conversations like this, we really do get to organize our own thoughts. You know, driving in here, I didn't think about all of those different compartments that we've shared on, but they're all there. And sometimes it helps so much to streamline. It helps you to refocus, to understand where you are. It's beautiful. So thank you.
Thanks for coming, Marc.
Thank
Such
you.
a full circle moment for us.
I know. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I have a question for you.
Oh, geez. Okay. It better be an easy question, Marc. This is it's not a thing in this show.
No, we're gonna stay on subject.
Sure.
When we went to Abidjan, you moderated for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Which was really good, by
Thank
the
you.
way. And clearly you have high-level conversations everywhere, and you're speaking with people in different spaces. And I mean, the question is, how relevant is this problem, this argument that we're committed to at our fund, to the everyday person or the diverse? You have quite a diverse set of guests.
I do. Various industries.
Do they care?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How relevant is it? That's the question.
I mean, I'd say this. The reason why, so essentially with this podcast, it's to get African voices give African voices a platform to talk about African problems or successes. And when we talk about the relevance, the people that I have on the podcast and the people that do listen to the podcast are doers. And so as you're talking now, I have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to my podcast. I have a lot of CEOs and executives in corporate that have the capital. And so when we have a conversation like this, I can almost guarantee now that you have someone who says, okay, so I've been thinking small. I've been operating in XYZ type of way with this particular system. How can I upscale so I reach the criteria that Marc's been talking about this entire time? And then the big part is information. Not many people know this. Not many people know that there is funding. Kind of like with African Bank, not many people, I don't think people actually, and I say this very loosely, I don't have the stats, but just based on conversation with the everyday driver or the young person who's selling t-shirts on the street or online, they don't really know that they can get access to funding and what's required of them. And they have these big dreams, but sometimes when you pass by some mansion and you probably think to yourself, I don't think I'll ever reach this level of success in my life. Mm-hmm. And what you're showing us is that it is possible. And essentially this podcast is just about that. It's possible. You have access to this information. Now you can act.
Yeah.
And that's really it. So it's the relevance of it, more than you know, it really kind of just ties up to everything. And in previous episodes, and the final episodes of my last season, which is season 7, I had people from Breadline Africa, which is, I don't want to call it a charitable organization, but they help a lot of children in disproportioned communities. And it's just terrible what these communities have gone through, especially post those who've been affected by mining companies that had to up and leave and go to a different area. And then those communities end up desolate. And then Breadline Africa comes in and they transform these communities from, particularly starting off with schools. And then Breadline Africa says, we need funding to act. And I've just seen the work that they've put in is just so incredible. So When we talk about this, and I say it very loosely, I hope people do actually watch those episodes.
Sure.
Because, they had people from they had government at governance level who are in energy transition that are assisting them. They have funders in, finance institutions assisting them. And then they work with community as well. And so when you hear the different stakeholders involved with Breadline Africa, the conversation surrounding funding is just so broad. And it affects every single one of us. And I think just listening to you talk and seeing you act and following your Instagram stories and reading about you, I'm always just so fascinated by how you keep on going. And the people that I have on my guests, and I'm like, how do you guys keep on doing what you're doing? I still don't know why. I hear you, but sometimes it seems so hopeless. And then you tell me your why. And then I have you on my podcast and you tell me your why. And you tell me what you've done and the people that have been affected positively by what you've done. And I'm just like, okay, I get it now. I get it. I get it. So yeah.
That's reassuring.
Very long-winded answer. I was having a
100%. And it also then, that's exactly the mind of your audience, of the listener as well, that they would have the same perspective. A lot of people come to us and say exactly that. Is this hopeless? Is there, why? What is this? And they won't even question why we're doing what we're doing. They'll question if they'll ever have a chance.
Exactly.
And so it's great that you have a perspective that makes us have to speak to that. It reminds us as well of our whys. That's what I was saying on my way in here. I wasn't thinking about all of that.
Yeah.
But it's the truth. So well done to you as well. Yeah.
Thanks. High five, Marc. Okay. Gonna wrap up this episode. I might start crying.
All right.
But you're truly brilliant, and you are such a necessary voice for our continent.
Thank you so much.
So and I pray that God really does bless your mission.
Thank you.
And grant you the strength.
Amen.
To keep on going in your journey of purpose, of fatherhood, of husbandness.
I was about to say husbandry.
I was gonna say, but I was like, no, that's something else.
That's not the right
Something
word.
else, yeah. And then your mission kind of is an inspiration, and yeah, I think that's
really
incredible.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, it's been incredible. Thank you so much for joining, and looking forward to hearing your views. See you next time.